Hey, student ministry leaders, this is Kenneth Bruce coming to you from the small groups building. I'm in a classroom here just as a symbol, as a place of where you guys do ministry week in and week out. And I just want to say thank you for your investment that you make in the lives of teenagers. Your impact and influence is significant. And the full impact that you're having, we're probably not going to know in this life, but I wanted to encourage you to keep being faithful. To keep being passionate for Jesus, to loving kids, loving teenagers, and pointing them to Christ, because that's why we do what we do, is to have impact. But you're not going to know the full impact that you're having in this life. The Lord may show it to you in the next life, but I do want to share with you a neat timeline, a chronology of something that I think is really powerful about the influence that you can have in someone's life. Back in the mid-1800s, there was a Sunday school teacher whose name was Edward Kimball. In Detroit, he was pouring his life into 16 and 17-year-old boys. And he had a visitor who came to his class one day whose name was Dwight. And so he went and visited Dwight at his place of work as a shoe salesman and said, "Dwight, something's not right, man. We need to talk." And so the two of them go into the basement of the shoe store where Dwight was working, and Edward led him to faith in Jesus. And Dwight's life was radically changed by the gospel, and we better know him now as Dwight Lyman Moody, D.L. Moody, who went on to preach the gospel to over 100 million people over the course of his life, and significant impact in the world, all because Edward Kimball took time with a 17-year-old boy as a Sunday school teacher in Detroit. Well, D.L. Moody went on to share the gospel all around the world, and especially in a place in London, with a senior pastor whose name was F.B. Meyer. F.B. Meyer was a pastor who was an intellectual, he was prideful, and he didn't want to hear anything from this D.L. Moody guy who had a fifth grade education. But D.L. Moody came to his church out of the urging of his congregation, and so F.B. Meyer listened to D.L. Moody, and hundreds of people get saved, and F.B. just did not like it. But 2 weeks later, after wrestling with his own pride, F.B. bowed his knee and gave his heart to King Jesus. F.B. Meyer went on to have a significant influence in the life of a guy named J. Wilbur Chapman, a man who loved Jesus, a man who was passionate about the gospel, and who had influence in people's lives. One of the people that J. Wilbur Chapman influenced was an evangelist whose name was Billy Sunday. He was known as the boxer evangelist, the fighting evangelist, a man who was gregarious and passionate and made Jesus famous and reached thousands of people with the gospel. Well, Billy Sunday had great influence in the life of another evangelist whose name was Mordecai Ham. Mordecai Ham was an evangelist who went all across the U.S. sharing Christ. And in 1936, he went to a tent meeting in Charlotte, North Carolina, where a 16-year-old boy came forward at the end of one of his invitations after hearing the gospel, and a young man whose name was Billy Graham trusted in Jesus. You see, all this backs up to a man whose name was Edward Kimball. In Detroit, a Sunday school teacher pouring into 17-year-old boys, sharing Christ, loving them, building their relationships, making contact with them outside of class. And the impact of a Sunday school teacher is still being felt today through the lives of these men whom he had influence over. And so I want to encourage you to keep being faithful. Keep fighting the good fight. Contact students outside of class. Build meaningful relationships with them. Share the gospel. If there's kids in your class who don't know Christ, lead them to Christ. Influence them. Pour your life into them. Encourage their parents to get involved in their discipleship. Partner with them. You guys are having an incredible impact on people's lives as a Sunday school teacher, as a life group leader, because you have the influence of the gospel, pointing them to Jesus. And so keep being faithful. I love you guys. I really appreciate how you pour into them week in and week out, being faithful. And so let's keep being faithful. Let's keep fighting the good fight. There's lots of kids here in the Alabama area who don't know Jesus. And so we've got to get the gospel to them because we don't know who the future D.L. Moody's might be, or Billy Sundays, or Mordecai Hams, or Billy Grahams. We just never know. What we do know is that we can have influence now. So let's pour into these kids and love them. I love you guys. Thank you for what you do each week. Y'all have a good week, and I look forward to seeing you this Sunday. Love you guys.